be screwed, feel my own adrenaline. Yeah, I do just what I do, and I hope you let me in, yeah.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to Cypherfics. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the fourth part of, What If Issei, Rias meet Ichigo and Bleach verse. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of Teloch on fanfictionnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Kuo, Peace Summit Room. But, I wonder if this new god would also prefer peace between you three? Ichigo said, taking in the shocked expressions of everyone in the room, and you could see each mind racing. The devout quickly went from shock to elation while the devils and the fallen grew concerned and worried. Let's make this clear, I know that God can be reborn. Not when or how to make it happen, only that it can happen. That didn't seem to matter much to the group, as he could see the start of a cacophonous argument right there as every leader opened their mouths. Before the first voice could ring out, Ichigo slammed an open palm on the table with a resounding crack that stole everyone's attention. Talk, like reasonable adults. Does knowing about God's rebirth change the purpose of this meeting? Or does knowing that suddenly mean that you would rather restart the war? They all became calm and returned to their seats. No. Though the angels will always serve our Lord, we personally do not seek war and conflict anymore, but we will if our Lord demanded it. Michael said, giving the first truly happy smile Ichigo's seen on him, but earning uneasy looks from the devils and fallen angels. So, while I am still the leader of heaven, our mission will be to make this peace one that even God would longing to keep. Michael declared with determined conviction and focus, a fresh change from the long-standing sorrow and despair that seemed to be his default expression. That same declaration gained similar approving smiles from the other factions. Love one another as I have loved you, a commandment that we of heaven and the church have failed to follow all too often. And we can trace the devil's prejudice back to the original Lucifer wanting to be the antithesis of God's triad, absolute good, by becoming an absolute evil. Serzex added, thinking back to one devil he was certain was somewhere out there. Who decided that all the devils had to be like the original? We don't even ask for souls if it can be avoided. Sounds like we all might unite under a single god if this keeps up. Azazel said, almost laughing at the irony of the matter of faithful devils. But we're missing a few crucial details, like how are we going to manage this? We can already share our knowledge and resources, but something like this needs something far more substantial. Like political marriages? Oriheim suddenly chimed in. I mean, the different soul races of the Godii used to be at each other's throats 10 years ago. Shinigami, Hollows, Quincy, they hated each other and fought constantly. The Quincy were almost completely wiped out. And then one guy was born that was a perfect hybrid mix, brought them under a united banner, and married at least 2 members of each race. Yoriichi said. Difference is that uniting under our dear Captain Commander was preferable to the stagnation of the Hollows and the parasitic tyranny of the original Quincy Emperor. These guys don't exactly have that set of circumstances forcing their hand. Well, that's not entirely right. Azazel suddenly said, looking to the silver-haired fallen angel. Shemhazi, you're up. The angel in question rose from his seat. While we of the Grigori have been gathering sacred gears, Longinus, balance breakers, and researching them all, we've discovered the existence of what can only be considered a terrorist group attempting to do much the same but with far more malicious intentions by gathering the more troublesome members of every faction. They call themselves, the Cow's Brigade, and are led by the Ouroboros dragon god, Ophis. Hearing this sent a wave of shock and terror throughout everyone in the know. I remember seeing the name in our dragon archives, but didn't think much of it. Ichigo said, thinking back on a book of draconic mythical figures. So how worried should we be? He asked aloud, for the biblical factions to hear, but he was really asking one being in particular. His oaken scar throbbed as the Soul King's voice rang in his mind. Ophis itself is regarded as the embodiment of infinite for a reason. However, treat them as a child. They isolated itself and never truly grew up, remaining as innocent and naive as children. The real concern is whoever is trying to manipulate them. The Soul King's voice faded as Ichigo returned his full focus to the current meeting, where they decided to inform the other mythological factions of the terrorists but still had to show their own unity first. So no, I'm off the table and already have a fiancé in mind. Seraphol declared, glaring at Azazel. But think about how it looks politically. The fallen angel returned. A Satan and any one of the he was cut off when Shemhazai whacked him in the head. Sorry about him. The truth is I myself am married to a devil, and he knew that. The fallen angel announced, much to everyone's surprise while Azazel was having a laugh. Why did you have to ruin my fun, Shemhazai? Because I don't enable your worst tendencies, and you know that. Well, that settles matters between the devils and the fallen, Ichigo said, but what about the angels and the I offer myself to marry Issei. Irina suddenly shouted, rather enthusiastically, making everyone look at her in surprise as she wore a growing blush. I mean, if he and Rias are okay with it. That wouldn't be a bad option. Surzex admitted. The Gremori are an influential family and Issei, being the Red Dragon Emperor, will certainly become a major player in devil politics later on down the line. Okay. Rias said while Issei was still processing Irina's declaration, and thinking something perverted. But why though? Irina's expression shifted to one of shame now. Truthfully, Issei, ever since we were kids I had a crush on you. She admitted, surprising the boy in question. And I was elated to see you again, until I found out you became a devil, and a huge pervert. Issei felt the word slam into his head. It was easy to bury it under a sense of betrayal, like my friend turned his back on me, but Orihime revealed otherwise. The exorcist walked up to Issei. I betrayed you, I let hate and prejudice keep us from reconnecting and making amends. She stood before him, throwing her arms out and opening her cloak to reveal her tight combat bodysuit. To do that now, I offer myself in this political union to strengthen the alliance of the factions, and grant you permission to vent all of your frustrations onto my body. She said, blushing the whole time. Whoa! Jack Dash! He yelled before getting punched in the head by Rias as she got between him and Irina. Down boy! She ordered. And you, wait your turn. I've got dibs. She told the exorcist, turning and sitting in Issei's lap. Okay. I guess that settled that. Ichigo said, thanking everything he was calmer at that age. Although, I was going to bring up the possibility of whether or not the Grigori would still be a separate faction. What do you mean? Azazel asked as the three fallen angels looked to the hybrid. What if the new god apologizes for your banishment? What if you're accepted back into the heavenly host? They'd probably consider you as a valuable consult and advisor since you're all more in touch with humanity than the other angels. Really the only thing that seems to separate your two groups are a color scheme and a disagreement that you're both coming around on. That made the three fallen and the two seraphs look to each other. That makes sense. Azazel admitted as Michael rose to his feet and walked over to the fallen. I'd be elated to welcome you back, my brothers. He said with a smile, with Azazel keeping him at arm's length. Boundaries, Michael. Get a rack like Gabriel's and maybe we'll hug. They were brought back to the meeting as they heard Surzex and Seraphol laughing. This is the most entertaining meeting I've ever been a part of. He said, smiling in good cheer as the mood slowly affected everyone. I'm not entirely sure how much is getting done, but it's certainly far more interesting. I can only hope telling those old codgers back home that I'm going to make a serious effort with marrying Ichigo will be a tenth as fun. Serafal said between laughs, stopping when the temperature suddenly dropped, literally. Ah. I forgot to mention that. Orihime said, turning and doing apologetic bows to Rukia. Sorry Rukia, first wife and chairwoman of the Brides of Ichigo. It slipped my mind to mention this at our monthly meeting. Rukia sighed as the temperature returned to normal. Serafal Leviathan. The captain started, making the Satan straighten up unconsciously. 3 days after this, we will be having a meeting. You will meet the other sister wives and you will make your case as to whether or not you will be accepted. Serafal nodded while everyone else turned their eyes on Ichigo. Yeah, they've been like that ever since I finished my training in Dun Scaith. He told them. I don't argue, I just accept it. I'm too busy to really dictate my love life. Don't complain about having a HRM you lucky dash. Issei was shouting before his face was hit with a ball of blue energy that wrapped around his head and turned into a RBB face mask. I was being lenient before, but what he was saying had nothing to add to anything. Ichigo said with a finger pointing at Issei as the Gremory peerage was trying, and failing, to get the elastic keto off their friend. Surzex, you can free his nostrils so that he can breathe. And hurry, I don't think he can afford any brain damage. Surzex proceeded to do just that, creating a thin line of destruction magic to carve out the necessary holes to let his prospective brother-in-law breath. As he did, Gabriel raised her hand. Miss Rukia Kurosaki. May I join Serafal in that meeting? She asked, surprising everyone. Issei almost lost his nose because of that. I don't know what I might be able to offer personally, but I can at least serve as the political bond with the angels. So, you don't care to marry out of love? Rukia asked, feeling annoyed while Gabriel looked confused. But I do love him. I love everyone. She said with a smile, making Ichigo and Rukia compare her to Orihime back when his HRM was just starting. She's too innocent. They thought as Serafal stood up. Now hang on you. She started angry but seemed to trail off in thought. Actually, I'm good with that. She said with a thumbs up, and a bloody nose. What was she thinking? Some of the group thought as Ajuka took a stand now. Well, now that we've decided on solidifying some political alliances, I've got a few questions for the Godii. If I may Ichigo? He asked, Ichigo nodding to the Satan. Can you explain why and how you had both the Citri and Gremory peerages bugged for the past 3 years? As he asked that, all the other devils froze with the angels looking shocked as well, but the members of the Godii didn't betray any emotion. I noticed it whenever I saw either of them, but it was so unfamiliar that I was having a strong time really determining the how. There wasn't anything on them, nothing mechanical or magical, and it seemed like it was inside them somehow. A theory that was confirmed in Sona's and Rias's report that they received a text on their phone telling them about Selzen's ambush. Surzex and Serafal's expressions turned to angry stone while the Gremory and Citri peerages looked horrified. When I tried to have a sample recovered from them, I failed to find anything I could use for research. Yeah. We bugged them. Ichigo casually admitted. A nifty invention of one of our scientists called surveillance bacteria, that they ingested. Usually with some treat Orihime made or from some of the spiked candy Kaneko got from her mascot work with Soul Dragon Candy, one of our living world businesses. The Gremory and Citri peerages were trembling at how vulnerable they felt now. Designed to self-destruct and degrade completely once it sensed being outside of the body and were completely benign, only used for surveillance. Although I suppose he could alter them to be more like probiotics. Do you mind sharing a sample? Ajuka asked, making the other Satans look at him incredulously. It seems like it'll be incredibly useful for keeping tabs on the Great King faction. Ichigo released a groan of disgust. Those old-fashioned pure-bred F still trying to be a nuisance? He asked before sighing. Don't you have enough evidence to disprove any of their claims? Sadly no, otherwise I wouldn't be asking for a sample. Ugh. Fine. We'll supply you the means to use it but leave the actual bugging to me. I'm certain my stealth forces are better than what the devils can field. Ajuka nodded in acquiescence to the claim as Ichigo returned his attention to Surzex and Seraphol. No, I will not in any way apologize for putting your sisters under such strict surveillance. You put them in my country, I know how big a siscon the two of you are, I wasn't going to take the chance of them getting hurt and you two rampaging throughout the human realm like wild beasts I'd need to put down. I believe you, he pointed to Seraphol, said, my favorite berry wouldn't let anything dangerous actually happen. Remember? The two Satans released a sigh as they agreed. Thank you for watching over them. Surzex said. Though I would appreciate it if you removed that bacteria. Already taken care of. They ate cookies with an antibiotic in the frosting. That's why we didn't get the leftovers. Kaneko said, understanding but more upset about being denied the cookies anyway. That reminds me. Zenobia. Ichigo said to the Soul Reaper trainee, who brought over the briefcases. Like I said, I'll turn over the research and Excaliburs after we removed anything that would have compromised the Soul Society. Also, a few of my researchers decided to take a crack at the swords and the crystals. Zenobia opened up one case, revealing dozens of blue gene crystals that Valper discovered, earning gasps of shock from all parties. Completely artificial synthesized crystals, with an estimated potency of 3 times the latest version Valper made. Not a single scrap of a gene was taken from anyone else to make them. Zenobia then pulled out another case, unlatched a side, and slid it open to reveal 3 sword pommels, pulling out each one to reveal an Excalibur that Kokobile stole. She did the same with a few others, revealing more Excaliburs, regular fragments and mixed fragments. We may have gone a tad overboard. This is very generous, Ichigo. Michael said, pinching himself at the veritable treasure trove that the head captain just handed over. Heaven is still the worst off of you 3, this is to help level the playing field until God is reborn. Ichigo explained. Besides, maintaining peace is 1 part friendly relations and 1 part war deterrence. And I'm going to station more Gotei agents in Kuo to deter anyone that plans on starting a war in my territory. That statement made Rias shoot to her feet. Lord Kurosaki, Kuo is my dash. She tried to say before the entire room was caught in a suffocating atmosphere, all the air shot from her lungs and all she saw was Ichigo's stare. It was not angry, it held no contempt, she couldn't even gasp for air or move as each of her peerage fell around her. If you cannot even breath, why did you think you could talk? She heard as her vision began to black out before the pressure faded and the room filled with the sounds of gasping while she fell in a heap. Rias was always confident in her brother's power, but with that display of Ichigo's she began to doubt if even he could defeat the monstrous hybrid. Surzex, I just remembered you didn't tell me who you were nominating as the new overseer of Kuo. The Lucifer flinched while Seraphol and Graphia sighed. You didn't tell Rias she was fired, did you? Wah. Rias could only groan while Orihime, Graphia, Irina, and Zenobia helped them all back into their chairs. Her brother sighed as he could no longer stall. Rias, in accordance to our agreement with Soul Society, Head Captain Ichigo Kurosaki deemed you ill-suited to the position of overseer of the Kuo area and you have been dismissed. He finally said, the words feeling like ash on his tongue, and refusing to look at his sister. Your replacement will be Sona Citri of the Citri household. You are still permitted to be in Kuo, but Sona is now in command. Sona stood, but everyone could see her trembling. I will do my BB best as OOV overseer. She said, still dealing with the aftermath of Ichigo's Ryatsu. There's one more question I have, Ichigo. Ajuka said. I noticed it around the same time you informed us about God's rebirth, but where are we right now? When he asked that, the leaders just then noticed they didn't feel the magic of their barrier anymore. I moved the meeting to the shadow side of Kuo. Ichigo said, using full brain on the curtains to reveal a completely empty space. Like Shemhazai explained with the Cows Brigade, I suspected that some folks that were less than thrilled about the peace summit would have made their moves and attacked us. Like some old Satan faction members, overzealous exorcists, or the more bloodthirsty members of the Grigori. Yuryu pulled out a box with a button. However, if we've settled everything we came here to do, then I declare this meeting over. All in favor? He asked, getting a resounding aye. Yuryu pressed the button and they watched the window and the darkness faded away, replaced by a grey film over everything and blood-stained ruined landscape as the four Sternritters were holding off an endlessly spawning army of robed figures and devils with spirit arrows. Azazel asked the question most everyone was thinking. What the hell did we miss? Yuryu pulled out a radio that was connected to earpieces with each Sternritter. Report. He ordered, getting a bit of static before Lotato's voice came through. Hey boss. After we sent you guys off, these robed figures showed up and appear to have taken the vamp kid to use his sacred gear to freeze everyone. Hearing that seemed to have kick-started the recovery of the Gremory group as they gasped and rose to their feet. Gasper. How dare they target my servant like this? Rias roared in anger with her red aura leaking out only to get an icy finger trailing down her neck, courtesy of Rukia. Calm down. You can't rescue your servant if you go in guns blazing and without a plan, no matter how strong your team is. The captain scolded as the report continued, the Gremory heiress forcing herself to calm down. Then this skank calling herself, Cunty Leviathan, I could have gotten that name wrong, showed up demanding where you guys were. Kateria Leviathan. Surzek said in disappointment. So they really are turning against us. Only thing we got out of her before the fight was some world domination bullshit. I managed to get the devil and angel guards out of danger since they were frozen and the only real problem is that one beach. Can I eat? No, I'm starving. She asked, earning incredulous looks from everyone except for those that knew her. Yuryu released a sigh. Let's try and capture the Leviathan if we can, kill the rest. The Quincy ordered as he turned to Valley. You want to join me out there? You look pretty bored right now. The white dragon looked to Azazel, who gave him an approving nod with Barakil joining the Quincy leader. Valis smiled as they rushed out with the dragon sprouting some kind of blue energy wings, almost obscuring the sight of a pair of jaws stretching out and biting through anything that was between the teeth while the air was filled with the cackling of electricity, the booms of explosions, and the sounds of crashing. What was formerly a stalemate between the four Quincy and the endless terrorists shifted into a one-sided slaughter. Okay, while they take care of that, do you want to save your little vampire? Ichigo asked, snapping the Gremory members from the horrific slaughter. Bambi was fighting a few devils, now blowing people to bits, Candace was frying them with electricity, Menelaus was tearing them apart with raw strength, and Liltato was eating everything as Yuryu now fought a tan-skinned woman with long brown hair wearing glasses and a rather revealing dress. The odd thing Ichigo and the other spiritually aware noted was that her power seemed to feel mixed in an odd way. Of course. Rias declared as the rest of the Gremory peerage stood by her side. All of my household is precious to me and my own. Irina looked to Michael, asking permission to join them as she took one of the crystals and an Excalibur, now wielding her mimic in a rapid/transparency in the form of broadsword with hole in the guard and a protrusion in the back. The angel nodded as Irina smiled and joined the Gremory group. While Azazel gave Issei a couple rings he claims could help him control the boosted gear and forbidden Baylor view. Very well, Rukia, show them the way. The commander ordered his wife as he opened a garganta. Rukia stepped forward, creating a platform of rasure. Zenobia. Did you wish to join them? He asked the trainee as she wordlessly manifested the Durandal and joined the group. Follow me and stay close. If you fall off, there's no coming back. Rukia declared as she sprinted off, the group of teens following her and making sure to stay on the manifested walkway. Aren't you planning to head out yourself? Azazel asked Ichigo as Graphia was serving the remaining members another round of tea. Yoriichi can handle this. I don't want to ruin their fun so early. Old school building. The group of teens walked out of another tear in space, infiltrating the enemy territory and comparing the Garganta to their normal method of teleporting. Kiba summoned a holy demon sword, Akino switched to shrine maiden clothes, and Issei had out his gauntlet to start raising his strength. Kiba and Kaneko took point, leading the group down the hall. Irina and Zenobia were in the back. In case of an attack from behind, while Issei, Rias, Akino, and Asia were in the center. Here you go. Good luck. Rukia said, already walking away from the group, much to their surprise. What are you going to do? Issei asked. To assist my allies. That's my priority, just like saving that vampire is your priority. She said before flashing away. The group looked to each other and nodded before bolting down the hall. As they ran they saw the chaos erupting around the school grounds, the veteran devils watching Kateria and Yoriichi fight with black energy serpents and blades of blue, while Issei watched Valley at work. They kept going until Zenobia spoke up. Third room on the right. She called out. That's where the most energy is located. Choosing to trust their ally, Rias ordered Issei to promote to queen so that he, Kaneko, and Kiba could make the entrance. They broke down the door but didn't enter, growling in frustration at seeing Gasper tied to a chair with a dagger to his neck in a room filled with the robed figures. Senpai. Kaneko. He called out as the rest of the group showed up. Everyone. I'm sorry. He hung his head in despair and shame. Just kill me. I'm nothing but a burden. He begged, breaking the hearts of his household. You'd be better off with Dash. Stop talking like that. Rias ordered, having enough with losses for the day. You're my servant, my family, and I refuse to abandon you. All I do is cause trouble, so don't bother with Dash, he argued back when suddenly the magician on his right was cut across the back, Irina appearing with the rapid transparency Excalibur in hand before thrusting the other forward as the Excalibur mimic turned into a spear and stabbed the other magician in the throat. The rest of the peerage were just as shocked before leaping into action. The magicians stood no chance. Okay Gasper, let's get you out of that. Akino said, stepping forward before noticing the spell at his feet. Ah, so that's how they were doing it, and there's a barrier that Gasper's powering. He can't move from this spot. The queen groaned as she got to work trying to figure out how to undo it. Please, just kill me and get it over with. The vampire begged again. If you don't, everyone will dash. Dude. Shut up. Issei roared out. You're one of us, precious friends of the House of Gremory. You can't ask for a more loving household and MSTR than the Prez. We won't kill you or abandon you just because you feel like a burden. He held up his gauntlet and called out a blade, the Dragon Slayer sword Ascalon that he got from Michael. And as a man, if you don't like something, you change it. Issei dragged the tip of his index finger across the blade and cut himself, surprising the rest of the peerage. Now come on. Power up and let's end this together. Drink up. The dragon shouted before shoving his finger into the vampire's mouth. His body pulsed and his eyes flashed before exploding into a swarm of bats, overpowering and destroying the seal that held him in place. He reformed seconds later, with the time freeze fully dispelled. I know Azazel suggested it, but I didn't think it'd be that effective. Issei said as he pulled out one of the two bracelets while Asia healed his finger. Now Gasper, I don't want to ever hear you talk like that again. Rias said, scolding the vampire. I want you to cause trouble, so I can scold you lots, then hug you even more. Because you're precious to me. She said before hugging her timid bishop. That hug was soon joined by Akino and Kaneko while Issei and Kiba just held his shoulders in solidarity. Now let's get out of Dash. Rias was cut off by the sound of thunder, causing everyone to rush to the window again and seeing Yuryu with his hands ablaze in racier, lightning striking around them, and Kateria falling to the ground, missing her wings and an arm. With Yuryu. The Squad 15 captain watched impassively as the devil fell, burned and smoking from the lightning she was struck with. The fight was a non-issue for him, using the Almighty to stay ahead of every move she tried to make against him, and all the magic that was used saturated the area with racier that he took full advantage of. He led her around until Candace was underneath and then allowed her to believe she caught him by turning her arm into a tentacle snare around him, boasting that she couldn't be cut. That claim was disproved as he manifested a blade of racier that slid through her arm like a knife through water and later her wings, just to add insult to injury. With that done, Candace unleashed a high-voltage lightning bolt on the devil, stunning and frying her into unconsciousness, leaving her vulnerable for Lil Tato to gobble up. And successfully captured. Yuryu thought as he drained the racier in the magic gate, disabling it while still maintaining the Almighty, waiting for the actual threat. Now, here he comes. He thought before flashing away, causing Valley to miss as he attempted to tackle the Quincy. For the record, everyone in the Godii has the ability to sense spiritual power, which is the basis for most everything. He explained to the dragon, now clad in his white balance breaker armor, who he guessed was looking at him in excitement. I kept track of you as you helped fight the magicians, then punched out Barakiel. Not surprising honestly. What, can you see the future? Valley asked, not serious but enjoying the banter. I paid attention to you during the meeting. Yuryu explained. You were excited to hear about God's return, you kept evaluating Ichigo every time Surzex and Michael showed him respect but were especially excited when he showed off his Ryatsu to that Gremory girl, and Oriheim told us about the last time she saw you. You aren't the first battle nut she's met, just a bit more subtle about it. Pretty clear you were the traitor that caused this attack. Valley had the nerve to laugh. What can I say, peace is boring, but I don't care for conquest like Kateria did. Neither does Ophis. The dragon claimed as everyone started gathering in the courtyard. I just crave battle. How juvenile. I'm going to attack now. Block it. Yuryu warned before flashing in front of Valley with a Jien made of racier in hand and the almighty disable. Valley was thrown off by the honesty of Yuryu's move and moved an arm to block the moment he saw Yuryu's red glowing BLD vessels, grunting at the force pushed him back a little. I'm also guessing you're severely disappointed in Issei as a rival. Then how about this, I can arrange you to have a fight with Ichigo if you can push Issei to get stronger. Vala's mask betrayed no emotion, but the lack of movement told Yuryu he had Vala's attention. And here's a hint on how to do that. With everyone else. I suspected, but didn't want to believe it. Azazel said, as the whole of the peace summit bore witness. They all gathered in the courtyard, the last of the invading terrorists slain, watching the battle. Barakiel informed them of Vala's betrayal and was being tended to by Asia as Yuryu made a move that Vala blocked. Hey, is that Quincy going to be alright? No one else is going to die today. Ichigo said as if it was the destined truth. Besides, Oriheim can patch him up. So I've heard. You sure that girl doesn't possess as sacred gear? Azazel asked, gaining an interest in Soul Society's abilities. Yeah. Besides, sacred gears are boring. The hybrid said, earning a shocked look from everyone that didn't personally know him. Valley then flashed as Yuryu was struck by a beam of light, cutting off his arm, then kicking the Quincy down to the group. Oriheim had Ventus catch him, before letting him down and immediately restoring his arm. Sorry Azazel, but everything about this is dull. Valley called out. Peace between the factions. You've always encouraged me to get stronger, but how can I in a peaceful world? And you, Issei Hayudo, you're the embodiment of disappointing to me. What do you mean? Issei demanded, walking forward and glaring up at Valley. I was born powerful, a descendant of the original Devil King, you were born the most subpar human. Valley taunted. I know we're supposed to be contradictory to each other, but I never expected my destined rival to be so weak. Issei growled as he felt his anger build. Getting mad? Maybe this might make you interesting, become an avenger. What are you getting at, Valley? I'll give you a reason to hate me with all your guts. I'll take away everything you love here and now because you can't stop me. I'll kill your parents, your friends, but first. He paused, as if he couldn't believe what he was about to say. I'll take away the boobs of the whole Gremory peerage. Starting with Rias. He yelled out, sounding embarrassed about that threat. What? Virtually everyone asked as they tried to understand what Valley just said. Issei was utterly stunned. That's not possible. He muttered, looking to Azazel, tears in his eyes as he refused to believe something so vile could be done. Right? He begged. Well, actually. The fallen angel started, breaking Issei's hope. The vanishing dragon does have an ability called half-dimension, which can warp the space he's in and reduce everything by half, so yeah. He could do exactly that. There was a pause as the bracelet around Issei's arm flashed as he was clad in his balance breaker armor. The veterans of the Gotii shot out their hands and manifested a massive spirit barrier, caging the two dragons together as Issei roared in fury with his power skyrocketing. Seriously? Because he threatened tips? Ichigo asked, shocked that this is happening over boobs. There's nothing Issei loves more than my sisters and melons in general. Surzex answered as the other leaders added their power to the barrier. Valley. Issei roared as he shot at his rival, instantly tackling the white dragon and punching him. Valley immediately used his power to divide Issei's, but the manic melon lover still packed enough strength to crack both their armors with that attack. With each punch he threw, Issei swore to protect the boobs of each member of the Gremory peerage, until they both landed on the ground and Vala's armor fell apart. All that, just because I threatened some useless lumps of meat. Vala said, chuckling as he got back to his feet and purposefully goading Issei on even further. How interesting. Issei saw a cracked blue ball, a piece of Vala's armor, and dove for it. Never insult the greatness of tips. He roared, getting ready to fuse the gem with his own armor, only to suddenly feel his brain shake as a blow to his chin spun him around before falling unconscious. The armor dispelling and the bracelet falling apart. And that's enough of that. Ichigo said, his own fist glowing with power, before turning to Valley. That's your cue to leave. Valley merely laughed. He was immediately cut off as his head was blown off before he could manifest his armor again. Or at least, that's what he thought happened. The truth was that Ichigo immediately flashed behind him and pulled out his witch kit, a tool from Wing Bind made to battle dragons, which was shaped like a black flintlock pistol with white horns akin to his own hollow forms at the end of the barrel, and blue flames on the grip. He was stunned. Both his battle instincts and Albion himself was telling him that Ichigo would end him the instant he did anything. And considering the beating he took from Issei, he couldn't think of any way out of this that didn't end without him either dead or severely crippled. Valley. He heard someone say as everyone else saw a magic seal appear with a figure dressed in light Chinese armor coming out, wielding a staff. Next thing anyone noticed was another Ichigo appearing above him and kicking the guy in the head, sending him slamming down before yet another Ichigo appeared before him with his gun under Vala's chin and his foot on the other guy's neck. It was so fast, no one could even move. New guy, name and why you're here. The captain demanded, keeping an eye on the guy's staff while the two speed clones disappeared. Bibiko. Descendant of Sun Wukong HH. He cried out as Ichigo applied more pressure on the now identified monkey Yukai for moving his staff just slightly. I came to get Valley. Ichigo hummed before pressing more down on Biko. Gah. The Cows Brigade are about to fight the Norse gods and I came to get him. Ichigo hummed again before pointing the gun to Vala's chest and shooting, just enough power to send Valley flying back before kicking Biko into the dragon. Now get out of my country. The hybrid ordered. Next time you cause a mess like this again, I won't be so lenient. He warned as Biko quickly cast a teleportation spell and vanished. Ichigo put his gun away and flashed back to Issei, where Orihime was examining him with the rest of the peerage crowding around. What's the diagnosis, Heim? Just exhaustion. Nothing to really worry about. The teacher said, letting Rias cradle her pawn to her chest. Nice timing when you knocked him out. Azazel said as he, Surzex, and Michael came over. Though I'll admit, I did want to see him try to fuse with that frag dash. He was silenced as Ichigo punched him in the head. If you were less focused on sacred gears and more about managing your group, you would have noticed Vala's betrayal sooner. Ichigo scolded while the fallen angel nursed his new lump. Ichigo then repeated the same action with Surzex. The next time one of the old Satan group pulls a stunt like that in Japan, I'll storm the Devil Netherworld personally and wipe out every adult descendant of the old Satan faction. Alright. Sorry about that. Surzex said while Graphia took the role of a concerned wife, nursing her husband's lump. Now, with everything settled on our end, we're leaving. Ichigo said, opening a garganta for him and the rest of his group. One of you keep me up to date with this. The Cows Brigade is a threat we all must face. They began to leave before Liltato stopped, and turned around. I almost forgot. She said before her mouth grew to titanic sizes and coughed out the angels and devils that Michael, Azazel, and Surzex brought with them. Kept them safe in my non-digestive storage stomach when the Cows Brigade attacked. You're welcome. She said before running to join her group. That was gross. Kaneko said while everyone else shuddered. Yuriu's specific advice. Threatened tips. The Quincy said, causing Valley to retract his face mask. Huh? He asked, using the only word he could actually form at the moment. I know, it sounds dumb, but threaten boobs. Threaten to take away the boobs of his peerage, specifically Rias's. Threatening to kill his friends and family won't have nearly the same impact. There was a pause. Please say you're joking. I wish I was. Zenovia's new sleeping arrangements. Alright, trainee. Karen called out, walking to Zenovia's dorm room in the Silbern Fortress. Time to get back, to. Zenovia had nothing to her room at the moment beyond a desk, bed, a closet. Filled with training uniforms, her Aswachi, and the Durandal, so Karen wasn't expecting much. But she wasn't expecting to find Zenovia cuddling with the large holy sword like it was a body pillow. Sorry, neglected, love you. She heard the girl mumble as she sleepily rubbed her face against the flat of the sword. This is actually kind of sweet. Karen decided. In a weird way. She let this go on for another 5 seconds, before kicking the bed frame so strong it flipped. Zenovia woke with a shout as the bed fell on top of her. Get up. Training starts now. Issei remembered something. The Gremory and Citri peerages were in the student council room, doing the paperwork to officially name Sona as the new overseer of Kuo, with Orihime overseeing the process. After the fight, Issei needed a whole day just to be able to move again. Now that he was, Asia and Kiba were explaining what happened to Issei. And everything was settled peacefully. Thank God. A.H. Asia prayed before getting a sharp pain in her head, seeing that clicked something in Issei's head. Ah! He cried out, surprising everyone in the room. I forgot to talk to Michael about Asia. About what? The former priestess asked, reeling from Issei's outburst. About your banishment and if he could make it so you could pray without getting headaches. He kept yelling, raging about Valley and the Cows Brigade making him forget things in the heat of battle, cursing out Ichigo for knocking him out for the rest of Michael's stay. While he did that, Orihime took out her cell and texted this very matter to her husband. Ichigo's got a direct line to Michael. He said he'd ask for you. She said, after receiving a text back. I'm still mad about it. Issei returned. Ichigo's office. The good news is that they managed to push back the Cows Brigade and Odin was willing to listen to me explain the full situation. Azazel said, talking to Ichigo through a similar projector that Michael and Surzex used and keeping the promise of informing Ichigo of the present situation. They agreed to attend a meeting of the various faction leaders when the time comes, an invite I'm extending to every other connection I have. I'm hoping to hear back from Olympus and Svarga soon. Zeus and Indra can be a real pain to deal with. Word of the peace summit, the resulting treaty being called the Ko Accord, and the reveal of the Cows Brigade was spreading throughout the world at a rapid rate. Pretty soon the mythical world would find itself embroiled in war, so it was vital to build alliances and weed out the potential threats as soon as they could. I passed through Greece 7 years ago when I was training. Try mentioning me and see if that gets you anywhere. The hybrid suggested, idly wondering if Demeter and Aphrodite were still mad at him. Never got to India, so I can't say I really know any of the major Hindu figures. That's when he felt his oaken scar pulsate as the Soul King spoke to him. Can't you circumvent Indra and just aim for any of the triumvirate? Stopping the Cows Brigade should attract Vishnu's attention at the very least, since he's the preserver and all, or am I missing something about that? Again, never met that group. Azazel put a hat to his chin as he thought. That might help to get that faction to show up, but would definitely make things harder with Indra. The angel admitted. He's not the strongest of that faction but is still the leader and also a bit of an egomaniac. He once tried fighting the biblical God because he didn't like anyone else being called the ruler of heaven. That didn't end so well for him. And on that note, we should probably keep God's rebirth a secret from him. Still, we should do whatever to get them to attend. Ichigo argued back. Like I said, the Cows Brigade isn't something we can just ignore. If Indra chooses to ignore that, then he's a fool. Alright. I'll give that a try, but in exchange I want you to deal with Indra if he's going to be a nuisance at the meeting. Fine. Keep me up to date on any other attendees you guys think of. Also, when can Soul Society expect their copy of your Sacred Gear research notes? Ichigo asked, earning a somewhat mocking smirk from Azazel. I thought you considered Sacred Gears boring. To me, they are. Ichigo admitted with no hesitation. There's a difference between boring and non-threatening, and I didn't dismiss the threat they represent. At that, Azazel nodded in agreement. At least you're aware of their potential, even if you don't care for them. The fallen angel said with a smile. I'll be having one of my men send it to the Soul Dragon candy shop in Kuo. Thank you. See you again later. Ichigo said as he ended the call, the projection fading to reveal Yuryu sipping away at some tea with eyes in the almighty state before blinking and returning to normal. What now? The captain commander asked as the Quincy leader set his tea down with a smile. Good news. Nothing we need to really prepare for. Yuryu said, taking a huge weight off of Ichigo's shoulders. The only really major thing is a raiding game tournament among the current generation of young devils like Rias and Sona. I see you attending since you end up engaged to Seraphol. Ichigo hummed in approval as Kagetora came into the room with a few dossiers, the personnel and volunteers that he was thinking of sending to Kuo. I also think I saw a dragon attacking you, but the more important thing was a familiar face. A student of yours that decided to misbehave. A few names crossed Ichigo's mind when Yuryu said that, the Pendragon siblings and Jean, the child that inherited the spirit of the Maiden of Orleans. I suppose I'll be showing whichever brat that is some DSPLN then. The hybrid said, looking over the names on the files and what roles they'd be likely to play. A silence fell over the cousins as Yuryu seemed to be waiting for something that Ichigo was stalling on. Seriously? That's what you told Valet to do? The dam finally broke as they groaned and growled in frustrated disbelief. What the actual F is wrong with Issei? We read the same reports, but I never actually thought it'd be that bad. Yuryu whined, slumped over the table. And I keep seeing it popping up in some way. That dress break move can be useful for removing armor at the very least, but I've seen him create a move to actually talk to boobs. Ichigo let out another groan, smacking his head on his desk while Kagetora felt her eye twitching. "Captain, allow me to punish this enemy of all women," she said, reaching for her zanpakuto as it turned into a long spear with 7-pronged blades. Such lust can only be considered evil towards women. "Down Kagetora," Ichigo immediately ordered in a tired voice. "He's not evil, just stupid." I checked. The lieutenant hesitated, but ultimately reverted her blade back to its sealed state and sheathed it. If that kid's going to play a vital role in the future, we need to make sure he can actually play that role. He can, but I don't think we should have to suffer the full potential idiocy of a pay dragon. Both Ichigo and Nagao looked to Yuryu in disbelief. "I wish I was joking. We can mitigate it, but the only way to stop it completely is to find a new host for the boosted gear. Let's call that Plan B." The hybrid decided as he went back to reading the dossiers. Kyoto Castle. "So, these are the other girls?" The Leviathan Satan thought as she scanned the women in the changing room. Seraphol and Gabriel arrived in the city on the third day after the Kuo Peace Summit as per Rukia's instruction to meet with their prospective sister wives. After they left the train station they were immediately intercepted by some yokai who led the two of them to where the HRM of the shogun were gathered, into the realm of the yokai and to the baths of Yasaka's castle. Rukia's order as the leading wife of the HRM was that they'd bathe together, bonding in skinship and bearing everything to one another. They're not lacking for size, that's for certain. She thought as her eyes drifted to each one's different assets as they undressed. The first was the sizable busts of Yasaka, Tyr Haribel, Neliel, and Oriheim, with only Yasaka having any sag to her chest, as minor as it was. Seraphol guessed that was due to most of them practicing swordplay while Yasaka was definitely more of a mage type. And he'll be getting another nice pair soon. She thought as she looked at Gabriel's chest, an urge to reach out and fondle them bubbling inside of her while the angel in question hummed happily, oblivious to Seraphol's growing longing. She shook her head and went back to sizing up the other women. Not to say the rest are small either. She checked out the rest of the HRM, Isteth, Bambietta, Candice, and Tatsuki. Her eyes drank in their more toned figures until they drifted to Senna and Rukia. Well, maybe those two are. I'm heading in first. Can someone get my back? Rukia asked as she went into the baths first, Seraphol getting a full view of the Shinigami captain's butt, as Bambietta offered to help Rukia. That was a nice butt. The devil thought as they finished their stripping and went into baths. Each girl seemed to pair up as they washed their bodies, Bambietta getting Rukia's back, Candice and Haribel washing their hair, Isteth and Tatsuki more focused on their musculature and comparing their workout progress, Nell and Senna basically playing with the water and soap, and Oriheim and Yasaka talking about the kids having their playtime together. While Gabriel was marveling at the size of the baths, the calming herbal scent and atmosphere, Seraphol gained a predatory look to her eyes as she placed a hand on the angel's shoulder. "Come on, I'll help you wash up," she said with a sincere smile. "Ah, thanks Seraphol," Gabriel said with an innocent smile as they went to one of the showers. The two sat next to each other as they washed away any dirt and sweat from their bodies before moving on to applying shampoo and conditioner to their hair. Seraphol finished first while Gabriel was giving thanks to God for this pleasant experience and Seraphol's kindness. The Satan had to ignore the spike of pain as she got behind the seraph and started scrubbing away. "Wow Gabriel, your skin feels so smooth," Seraphol noted as she washed the angel. "Is this an angel thing to be so naturally soft?" That was a genuine question on her part, though her hands did start to drift ever so slightly to Gabriel's melons. Not to my knowledge," she admitted, not noticing Seraphol's wandering feelers. "But my body was a gift to me by my Lord, so I should try and cherish it every day," she said with a smile, before letting out a surprised gasp as Seraphol took hold of her voluptuous mounds. Seraphol. I already got my front. Gabriel said, not trying to stop the devil as her soapy hands rubbed the underside of her melons as her body began to tingle a little. Just making sure. Seraphol countered while bearing a cat-like smile, mixing in a BRST massage as she washed Gabriel's tips and playing with them to her heart's content. You wouldn't believe how much sweat can accumulate under our big boobies. WL, I guess that's true AH. She gasped in shocked delight as Seraphol pushed a finger into both of her nipples. I don't think those were dirty, Seraphol. You sure? I thought they were inverted from how easily they took me in. The devil continued as she rotated her fingertips, buried in Gabriel's nipples as the angel tried to hold in a She couldn't befoul the effort of a friend helping her wash with such an indecent sound, but there was only so much she could take. Then there was a whistle and a loud crack as a wood basin was thrown and smashed against Seraphol's head, breaking apart on impact with Seraphol now lying in a daze with BLD squirting out of her head and nose. Keep the pervy stuff in the bedroom. Not the baths. Tatsuki scolded, stomping over to the two before throwing Seraphol into a pool labeled cold baths. Not like I can talk though. The martial artist muttered under her breath as she rinsed Gabriel off while the angel was in shock at what happened to Seraphol before helping her into the main bath with the rest of the girls. Well, now that we're all here, it's time to call this meeting of the brides of Ichigo to order. Rukia announced, substituting a gavel smack with her hand on the water. Rukia wasn't the first girl in their husband's collection of lovers, but she was the first bride. That and the other options were Orihime or Tatsuki. Everyone agreed Rukia was the best choice since she had that mix of familiarity with everyone and the ability to keep order among the sister wives. Vice Chair Yasaka, please remind everyone of the purpose of this meeting. Yes, Chairwoman Rukia. The Yukai princess declared. Yasaka had the role of second in command since she had much of the same diplomatic leadership quality with greater experience but was still the newest bride out of the lot. During the Koh Peace Summit 3 days ago, the factions agreed to political marriages to strengthen the ties between the groups in attendance and included our Lord Shogun as a result. The devils presented the Satan, Seraphol Leviathan. Can I please join you? They heard the devil ask as she stood up from the water, her nipples irked and body shivering from the cold. I'm sorry about what I did. Also, why is this pool so cold? Another 2 minutes at least, you horn dog. Tatsuki answered. Besides, you should be thanking me. Hot to cold therapy does wonders for the BLD flow and feels great. You threw me in the cold bath. She angrily returned, forgetting the chill for a moment. I figured you needed a cool down first since you were so hot and bothered. Tatsuki teased with a smirk. That being said, I'm not kidding about alternating between hot and cold. I'm getting in that bath pretty soon. Seraphol pouted, but returned to the water and endured the polar plunge. And the angels presented the seraph, Gabriel. Yasaka continued as that ended. Attention went to the angel who gave everyone a kindly smile. I hope we can all get along and you take care of me as your newest sister. She said, somehow radiating light. An innocent face and personality with a body built for temptation. Candace suddenly said, making the angel gasp in shock before going teary-eyed. Reminds me of you too. The Electric Quincy said, pointing to Nell and Orihime, both of whom pouted but couldn't protest since they remembered their forays into SXL debauchery. Is my body actually sinful? The angel asked, her light dimming as she hoped that her form wouldn't cause people to fall to sin. She was supposed to be a symbol of light and purity, not an idol of lust and depravity. As the girls saw this, Seraphol sprang into action to cradle Gabriel's head. No, it isn't. The devil quickly claimed, hugging the angel close to her. If anything, you can consider it as a tool to expose those weak to their lustful urges. Tyr calmly stated. Whether they give in or not is the test you can perform. Then you can, in turn, make them repent by exposing their weakness and guiding them back with your pure aura. Really? Gabriel asked, her light getting brighter again. Yeah. You're so appealing it actually makes me want to pray. Seraphol shouted as the angel looked hopeful. Do you really mean that, Seraphol? The devil nodded, making the seraph smile before taking Seraphol's hands. Then let's join in prayer, my sister. Seraphol nodded as the implications of what she said started to dawn on her, filling her with regret. Oh, okay. She said before they were both splashed with water. Save that for after the meeting. Rukia said as she tried to return to the matter at hand. Now Gabriel, Seraphol already knows this, but there are rules until you are properly accepted into this group beyond being a trophy wife. Gabriel tilted her head in confusion while Seraphol sighed. And I've abided by these rules since we started dating. I've only ever kissed him on the cheek when appearances demanded it of us. We've never done anything SXL despite all of the aphrodisiacs the elders have tried to drag us with. Seraphol explained. You know, none of you even explained why this was necessary. I figured, since there were 10 of you, that you'd be more open-minded. For 2 major reasons, Seraphol. Yasaka said. 1, you are both more loyal to your own factions instead of our husband. Even at the end of everything, if you were given an option, you would probably betray our trust if it meant furthering the devils. The Satan wanted to argue, even if what they said was true, that they were working on making sure that wouldn't be the case. 2, there was supposed to be 11. Orihime said as the mood darkened, Rukia, Tatsuki, and herself stealing their expressions. 10 years after it happened and they still mourn their sister. Her name was Ranjaku Matsumoto. Tatsuki said, taking over. She was basically the cheerful big sister of the group, sometimes lazy but was definitely an emotional rock if you needed one. Definitely could make a bad day seem decent just by her personality. But, she died during the Quincy BLD War 10 years ago. Seraphol deflated, this being the first time she's ever heard of the death of any of Ichigo's lovers. Gabriel was on the verge of tears, sensing the sadness the others felt. Ichigo never really forgave himself for not being there, falling for an obvious trap that lured him away. Rukia continued. All the power that he possessed and a near-flawless record, only for one day to remind him he's not all-powerful and that we were too reliant on his strength. He still leaves dried persimmon offerings for her every year. That's why we're being more strict regarding any new sisters. Orihime said, her voice gaining an edge. We don't want him to suffer through something like that ever again. Seraphol was about to speak up again before Orihime continued. We're not questioning your strength, you being a Satan proves your power, but the risk is still present. Especially since your death, the death of any of us, would be more than enough reason for Ichigo to rampage. And considering his powers now, he'd probably erase whoever was responsible from existence. It wouldn't be the first time he did that. Tatsuki said, shocking the devil and angel. And it's not an exaggeration. Ever since he ended the BLD war, no one could recall the name of the first Quincy emperor. Even the written records of his name were erased. No one should have that kind of power. Gabriel whispered, horrified that anything could do something like that. Seraphol seemed to take a moment to steel her resolve before standing in front of the HRM and summoning a parchment from a magic seal. She unfurled it and glowed with magical power. I, Seraphol Leviathan, swear upon my names of Citri and Leviathan to use this marriage to strengthen the bonds of friendship between the devils and Soul Society. She promised while the parchment now covered in devil script. I will hide nothing that could harm this union, and any child I bear will be safe from the political games of those that would seek to manipulate my husband or myself. All this, so long as Ichigo responds in kind. The paper flashed as the magic set. Devils are bound by their contracts. So long as Ichigo does nothing to make himself an enemy of the devils and protects our children, I'll be as devoted a wife as he could ever wish. Rukia stood up and took the parchment, planning to have Ichigo and Yoriichi read it over since they actually knew the devil language. I'll be sure he gets this so you two can plan your, whatever devils do for marriage ceremonies. She said before flashing to the changing room to put the contract with her clothes before flashing back to the baths. Gabriel watched Sarah fall, admiring the length she was willing to go there to honor this agreement and her future union with Kurosaki, while she questioned herself. Do I have that same resolve? She thought as Sarah Fall was being more accepted into the group, planning out a dating schedule and getting to know the rest of the girls better. Could I make a similar oath? Do I have the right to? The seraph thought as she remembered the utter devotion every non-fallen angel had towards God, that if her lord demanded it then she would betray Ichigo. Ichigo who, from the day he met Michael, was a valued friend to the angels as he revealed the truth of the hollows and how to cleanse them. How he helped better arm heaven as a sign of trust in their building unity. That Ichigo was tough but ultimately fair as he treated both the angels and devils fairly, judging by actions to the whole rather than personal feelings. She shook her head, clearing her mind of doubts. Angels are supposed to protect and guide the just while punishing the wicked. And Ichigo Kurosaki is not wicked. She thought as she moved to join the group. He is a righteous man. Soul Society, SRDI. Ichigo flashed in front of the gates to Squad 12, eager to get all of his work done so he could proceed with something he actually wanted to do, spend time with his family. That's why he took the more proactive approach whenever he could and just get the reports and paperwork directly instead of waiting in the office for someone to deliver it. Today he was expecting a report on sacred gear-related research after sending Azazel's notes to the 12th Division. On top of that, there was another reason why he chose this moment to arrive at Squad 12 as Yashiro rounded the corner. "Hey boss man! How's it going?" He shouted excitedly while other members of the 2nd Division brought along Kateria, bound and gagged with a dead look in her eyes. "You could have told me you weren't going to be in your office before I sent a messenger to your office with the written report. I'll look it over when I get back. Give me the Cliff Notes version." Ichigo ordered as he and the Shihuan walked side by side into the Research Institute of Soul Society. Well, she was being rather tight-lipped about everything so talking didn't work much. He said, sounding disappointed with his lack of success. "So we popped out some holy water and used some advanced interrogation methods. We managed to pry this odd energy out of her." He held up a glass canister that held a black snake that emitted a dark energy, and pretty much everything regarding the old Satan faction's numbers and secret supporters in the new devil government, and some of the other factions that make up the Cows Brigade. A group for mages, like the ones that attacked during the Kuo Summit. One comprised of humans that inherited the spirits of heroes. Like the ones that helped us in the Quincy War. Ichigo asked. Achilles, Atalanta, Medea, and Karna. Yes, but this group also possess sacred gears. Leader is some guy called Chow Chow. And then there's the Clippeth group and something about the true king, before she went into this brain-dead trance. He said, pointing to the unresponsive devil. I told them to be careful with that bucket but they still ended up dousing her completely. Almost didn't get her to Unohana in time. We'll make do. Take her to Mayuri and see if he can't finish the job. He ordered before turning down a separate corridor toward the newest lab labeled Sacred Gears. Ichigo opened the doors to see that gemstone from Vala's armor that he stole being scanned with Urahara examining some notes. What do you got? He asked his old mentor. He's certainly a scientist after my heart. Kisuke said, putting the notes down. They're immaculately detailed on the powers, the dangers, and even some possibilities that each one could be capable of if the user gets the right idea. A machine started beeping and printing out a graph and number. One of the other researchers took it and brought it to Kisuke as he immediately read through the results. Interesting. Ichigo, could you get me a piece of the boosted gears armor? What did you find? Nothing that Azazel didn't already, but I have a theory I want to test. Urahara said as he went to a board and drew a quick sketch of the two heavenly dragons, Albion and Draic, as they appeared in dragon history books. They have a similar power of gaining strength, but through completely contradictory means. Draic made himself stronger, but Albion makes everything else weaker. Did they longing things to be that way? Do they apparently hate each other solely because they're opposites or because their desires conflict? Natural enemies then. Ichigo concluded as the reason why the two were destined to fight. Nah. They were just unrivaled, met up one day, and decided to fight each other since no one else could. That boosting and dividing was the result of trying to circumvent the other's ability. No hate, just a rivalry to push themselves to get stronger. They've been at it ever since. It's right here in Azazel's notes. The hybrid had to repress the sudden urge to strangle his old mentor, forgetting that he liked messing with people. But, both he and I are curious about what would happen if they could actually combine like Issei attempted to do before you knocked his lights out. Ichigo raised an eyebrow, wondering if that was really an idea worth pursuing. I mean he could, but brute forcing it would have very likely killed him if not shave off 90% of his devil lifespan. But, I'm willing to bet that I could make it possible and relatively painless by comparison. You think you can easily merge together two completely antithetical powers? Ichigo asked, questioning the logic behind attempting this, even if it could help. It happened before, didn't it? Kisuke countered. How else could you be standing before me? Ichigo paused as he remembered that his soul was comprised of contradictions, as Shinigami and Quincy were opposites with how they controlled Raisher while also possessing hollow powers despite being whole. Good point. I'll see what I can do. Ichigo said as he turned and flashed away back to his office. He still had a mountain of paperwork and a longing to take his wife and daughter to the amusement park in West Rokon. Kuo Academy, ORC room. These are our new teachers. Sona said, gesturing to the new additions to the staff. Azazel, who now wore a three-piece suit with the buttoned shirt untucked and the collar open, Tatsuki, who was wearing a red track suit with the jacket unzipped to reveal a white shirt underneath, and Yasutora, Chad, Sato, who was wearing a white long-sleeved shirt with a few rose designs on it and black pants. Azazel will be teaching chemistry and joining Orihime as the ORC's advisor, Miss Tatsuki Arisawa, who will be teaching gym, be the student council's advisor, and co-advise the new mandatory combat training club with Mr. Yasutora Sato, who's teaching music. The devils of the Gremory peerage were surprised, but Rias felt her eye twitch. And they're here for the extra security, courtesy of Soul Society. Grimjow, Bazard Black, and Jackie Sato. She pointed to the group on the opposite side. Bazby was still wearing a punk-style variant of the Quincy uniform with his red mohawk on proud display, while Jackie was a black woman wearing tight pants, a gray shirt with a black jacket, shoulder-length black hair, and heavy-looking knee-high boots. Sona, what's with this? She demanded, pointing to Azazel. I know everyone else is here because of Ichigo's orders to up the Godii presence here, but what's with him? Sona calmly adjusted her glasses. Well, former overseer Rias, the Crimson Devil, felt another twitch at being reminded of her demotion. Azazel happens to be our most learned asset when it comes to sacred gears, and Lord Surzex agreed he'd be an invaluable aid to helping all of us strengthen our sacred gears. Or are you going to complain? Rias growled while Sona held a smug smile, enjoying the teasing of her rival. And the mandatory thing? Rias managed to say, being further annoyed that they'll being forcibly commandeering her peerage's time. She admits she needs to get stronger, but there's a difference between doing something by choice and being forced to do it. Miss Tatsuki is a karate and Hakuda MSTR, being a martial arts instructor for new recruits in Karakura Town, and Mr. Sato was a punk-turned world-class boxer. They'll help us cover our regular fighting skills that, frankly, we've been neglecting. Sona answered while her glasses gained a menacing glint. There are no exceptions. I expect everyone of both peerages to attend. But on the bright side, Lord Surzex informed me that devil kind can once again expand our operations beyond Kuo. An extra gift from Lord Kurosaki after bugging us and managing to end the three-way war between the biblical factions. I'm getting a sense of favoritism going on here. Rias complained. Also, Surzex has ordered that your peerage will be living together. Same with mine. Sona informed her, again shocking Rias, who could only sigh. After watching Issei and his fight with Valley, he realized how important close contact among the members of a peerage can be. This was a decision I was against, but Azazel and Ichigo agreed. Something about the bonds of friendship and such strengthening sacred gears. I'll need to renovate Issei's house. The Gremory heiress groaned, not looking forward to fighting with both Asia and now Akino for Issei's attention. Family time. It's good to see one's family being happy. Ichigo said with a smile, watching as Rukia and their daughter Hisana put on matching chappy hoodies and freaking out over the soft and cuteness of the design. Agreed, said the person to his right. It's definitely important to get all of one's work done so they can enjoy spending time with their family. Ichigo continued while the other person once more agreed. And it's certainly irritating when someone else knows this but butts in anyway. Indeed. So why the hell are you here, Byakuya? Ichigo quietly roared at his brother-in-law. Like you said, spending time with family is important. The Kachiki had answered calmly, while carrying a ton of plushies and clothing purchases while his sister and niece spent his money on more stuff. Besides, I'm paying for everything. You're Hisana's teacher and they live in the Kachiki manor. I want to be involved in my daughter's life, Byakuya. The other captain said nothing, not wanting to admit the PP move on his part. That's just how much he loved spoiling his niece. As soon as we put Hisana to bed, I'm going to plow Rukia so strong she'll scream and I won't care if you're in the next room. I wouldn't mind another niece or a nephew. Byakuya added, making Ichigo sigh in defeat. Later that night, because he promised. Hop. Hop. Rukia panted out, wearing a pink bunny girl outfit with her tips out and her arms and legs wrapped around Ichigo as he furiously moved into her. Chappie loves her treat hop. He held her by her butt as they stood with him bouncing her on his thick pages. My little bunny oven is hot and empty. Fill me up. She moaned out, fully aware her voice was echoing throughout the Kachiki manor, but didn't care as Hisana was put into a deep sleep with Kido. It was a useful practice when the parents needed some time alone and naps weren't lasting long enough. Here. It comes. He roared as he busted inside her, painting her baby room white. Rukia dug her nails into his back as her body seized up from her orgasmic high, slowly loosening her grip as she came down from that high with her tongue hanging out. You're on the pill, right? Ichigo asked, letting his wife gently down on the floor. Yeah, F Cow's brigade. She cursed, not minding another kid but knows how seriously Ichigo takes wartime protocol. He still wants us to have another kid, doesn't he? Rukia asked, getting a nod from Ichigo and causing her to sigh. We need to find him a wife. Checking up on Amiya. How much longer are we going to play nurse? Grumbled Rin Tosaka, a thin girl with long wavy brown hair tied up in twin tails with black ribbons, wearing a nurse uniform. We came here to be witches and MSTR our powers, but instead of that, they have us taking care of those Amiya kids. Well, we do have to pay off the cost of training, said her sister Sakura, a girl with equally long brown hair but was left free and a noticeable bust in her nurse uniform. Besides, this is training in the healing arts. The sooner we patch up his arms, the better that looks in terms of our skills. Right? Rin looked to her sister, getting a feeling there was something else to this. Besides, Shiro's a nice guy. She finished with a blush. I guess. Rin admitted, thinking about the redhead and reflecting on their interactions. Maybe we can convince him to lose the shirt this time. she said with a playful grin as Sakura turned scarlet as they reached the door. Well, let's do this. She opened it to find Ilya trying to feed her brother. Come on Shiro, say, ah. The albino requested as she tried to give him a piece of chicken, much to Shiro's annoyance. I can feed myself Ilya. He protested, though he was straining to move his arms. Ilya saw this and pouted. No way mister. The doctors told you to take it easy and that's what you're going to do. Now say, ah. The little girl demanded, causing Shiro to submit and open his mouth. Now was that so strong? Ilya asked as she gave him his food. Ah, that's cute. Sakura said with a smile, finding the sibling interaction heartwarming. A little sister being so caring for her big dash. She's 3 years older than me. Shiro said, stunning the girls and causing Ilya to pout. I was told there was an accident that stunted her growth before her parents adopted me. Why'd you have to tell them? Ilya complained. I like playing the adorable younger sister. She's older, and he's adopted. The sisters thought, not entirely sure what to make of the situation as the siblings argued. Because why not? Remind me, why did we volunteer for this hun? Jackie asked as the two Foolbringers made their way to the Godei Bureau, Soul Dragon Candy. Couldn't we have just asked for a lengthy vacation instead? Budding global conflict Chad said to his wife, I'm not sure we can afford to do that. They entered the candy store to find Kigo reading to a young black child with wavy black hair wearing a small pair of boots, black shorts, and gray shirt depicting a black and white demon face on a shield. The kid looked up and smiled, rushing to the pair. Papa. Mommy. Jackie smiled and bent down to catch her 5-year-old son, Miles Joaquin Sato, in a hug. Seeing their kid was enough to make everything brighter as all of her earlier irritations just washed away. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 5. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Teloch on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.